There was a very clear unifying thread to all discussions during the second day of CIFA's 15th International Forum. The world is in flux. Political changes around the globe are shifting the way institutions and organizations operate. Afaf Konja, chairwoman for the day, opened the day's proceedings with some insightful remarks about the importance of being aware of our shared destiny and how this translates into the business world.
Imagine a shared destiny with the UN's universally agreed upon 17 Sustainable Development Goals attained, leaving no one behind, ensuring a sustainable economy with shared prosperity, human dignity for all to taste, feel, and touch, and the preservation of our planet. Imagine a shared destiny where people are empowered by strong leaders who are honest and speak the truth.
The first panel tackled outsiders' role in the economy, but it also focused on the impact that nationalistic and inwards-looking politics is having on the world stage.
Well, I think we have to be open to fresh ideas. Also, we have to acknowledge and accept the democratic process. And so when someone who is labeled as an outsider wins an election, we have to understand why. We have to understand the frustrations that were dealt with, the fact that people felt ignored, that their views were derided, and that they had legitimate interests that hadn't been addressed.
Well, I think what's happened in the last 19 months or so is that there has been a reaction against a set of assumptions we've lived with in politics and business for the last 20 or 30 years, which is that the world is growing smaller, it's growing more interdependent and more integrated. And for many people that's working out very well. For many people it's not working out so well.
It's very important that also people in the business community or in banks ask, okay, who is the right expert? Where is the network which has a solid answer, an analytical basis, for instance, for understanding Brexit? And Brexit, I think, has a lot of dramatic challenges, and I would not be surprised if some of the best analysis comes from outside the UK, just because you have this view from the outside.
Moving forward, the panelists analysed bankers' close relationship to changing political landscapes and the role of regulation.
In the financial crisis that we all went through recently, in the United States alone, the lost GDP over the course of the recession and recovery is estimated at $24.3 trillion. In American English, a trillion is 1,000 billion, and a billion's 1,000 million. So it's a really unbelievably large number. Almost 10 million Americans lost their jobs. Almost 5 million American jobs that would have been created were not created. And all of those numbers I've given you are bigger in the EU, substantially bigger in the EU. So this is an immensely traumatic event, and the loss hasn't been evenly spread.
I think we have to look at where we've done very well in certain types of trade, certain types of financial services activity have been very well regulated, but not just, by that I don't mean heavily regulated, I mean effectively regulated. The problem is that when we come to a crisis, it's polarized. We see the worst examples. We never talk about the best examples. And there is a very strong case for pulling back on policy and encouraging sort of an intrinsic behavioral approach, which is much more geared to fiduciary responsibility, individual practitioners getting on with their reputations and their jobs in a positive way. As I believe there's a lot more to come from practitioners, because they are the experts on the ground. They're dealing with clients. They've got reputations to protect. And it's very wrong to be cynical about an entire industry.
This year's forum welcomed high-ranking guests from Southeast Asia, bringing their world perspective and expertise on banking and regulation.
Maybe regulation is not completely right, okay? Somehow it's lacking here and there. But secondly, nobody trusts that you understand the real problem, right? So it's the case where I believe that building trust is the main issue nowadays. If trust is there, you can make as tough regulations as you may want to make because you think you need it. You understand sometimes more on the macro global impact rather than just the individual investors. But the investors' concerns are also being taken into account for a more effective regulation.
There's only certain things that outsiders can do. Yeah? And whether we like it or not, in order to change things, you have to understand the insiders who are running the machine, whether it's the bureaucracy, whether it's the corporation. Without the cooperation of the insiders, the civil servants, the mid-rank managers, you as an outsider cannot make the changes that you desire to make.
After discussing the recent presidential elections in the United States and the possible future for a post-Brexit UK, the forum turned its attention to the voters behind the demographics. The discussions unpicked the political and socio-economic motivations that led people to cast their ballots for perceived outsiders in the past couple of years.
Generally, if you have less formal education, you are more likely to have voted either for Brexit or for Trump or for Le Pen. It's if the farther away you are from formal university education, the more likely you are to vote for them, and the more postgraduate education you have, whether it's a law degree or a medical degree or a PhD, even more likely you are to oppose those candidates. So it goes in both directions, all up and down the educational spectrum.
Well, I think the Europeans have a big problem here, because the Europeans really want democracy to produce the results that they want it to produce. And whenever a referendum or an election occurs which doesn't produce the right result as far as they're concerned, they reject it. In fact, they actually demonstrate a contempt for genuine democracy.
Some people are left out, and we have the demands of rulers like Putin in Russia, Xi Jinping in China, Trump in America, other people who want to take power, and in order to take power, they need to have an emotional bond with people. What's an emotional bond that's not universal? What's local? What's local is your ethnic, your cultural, your religious, your tribal heritage. And you can motivate people, you can get them to either think about themselves selfishly, but more easily to think about other people as being a threat or beneath them. So we have new opportunities for political leaders to arise by emphasizing our tribal loyalties and identities.
The last panel addressed how the world's economy is going to adapt to new rising economic powers and a change in political leadership.
Well, of course, every investor wants to earn a decent return, and every investor, or at least most investors, get very nervous about political uncertainty. And if you're thinking about what's the future of China, what's the future of Russia, not to mention the economic stability and outlook for the BRICS countries and things like that, that's one of the reasons why we had a very good closing comment by Dr. Christopher Smart about if you're investing money for 25 years, where do you want it to be? And I think a lot of people probably thought, well, maybe the old standbys of Western Europe and North America are still the safest places to put your money.
Joining us live from Brussels, the former president of the EU Parliament joined the conversation.
The same relation is between a dominant power and other dominated nations.
The Minister of Finance for the Principality of Monaco emphasized his support for CIFA's forum.
Tailor-made services, world-class investment solutions, an easy access to international groups, obviously present in the Principality but with roots elsewhere throughout the world, constitute a guarantee for the success of Monaco as a financial center. But in today's fast-changing world, another important aspect for a financial center is transparency and regulation. I would like to welcome you maybe one day to Monaco, either as a financial professional yourself or as a potential client for our renowned banking and financial institutions.
The marketplace here is also very well organized with banks belonging to international banking industries from all over the world. So you have connections, you have IT platforms very well developed. And more than that, I mean, 10 years ago we've decided to shift completely the model of the banking business from a retail banking business to a wealth management banking business. And we've done that in the meantime with the aim of being compliant with the highest standards developed all over the world.
Today's discussions were dynamic, stimulating and constructive towards facing the challenges of a shifting world. The third and final day of CIFA's 15th International Forum will continue with an in-depth discussion on how to bring financial advice to the next level.